Hey guys, this is Mr. Brown with your week 2 lesson. This is going to be review on the Middle Ages. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Remember, as you're doing this, you're going to take Cornell notes. This week, this is choice board number 5. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone on that one and make sure that you're just knocking out that as you're going through this lesson. This one is a little bit longer than it was week 1. So just bear with me with that. There are quite a few notes you're going to have to take, but you're knocking off something in the choice board. So that's going to be nice as well. All right. So first thing you need to do is do the bell ringer. Number 1 is how did week 1 of at home instruction go? And number 2, you're going to write a 1-paragraph summary of everything you already know about the Middle Ages. Please, for number 2, go ahead and do this based off of what you already know. Don't be looking at the slideshow and copying it. You're going to have to write a summary at the end anyways, reviewing it for your Cornell notes. So just make sure that you're actually being honest about what you already know. This part's a participation thing. So if you don't remember a lot, it's not the end of the world, okay? But you just got to write me a paragraph about what you know. So when did it start? This begins when Rome falls around 476 CE. And now you kind of have this power vacuum. And what happens in order for protection, people start becoming loyal to local powerful kings and leaders. But there's not this one big organized government in the same way that there was with the empires like we saw in Rome. With this, we're going to see that rise of feudalism, which we talked about earlier. This is the social hierarchy or that social class system of medieval Europe. The ranking is going to, from high to low, is kings, lords, knights, and peasants. And remember, the kings technically control all the land. And then the lords, they are granted parcels of that land in order to rule and maintain as long as they are loyal to the king. And then they're going to do the same thing for the knights, who they're basically fighting in exchange for not being peasants. And then the peasants are going to actually work the land and be the ones who do that manual labor. Okay. This is a mostly agricultural based society with peasants working the land and growing crops. And there is very little social mobility. Basically, the only option you have other than being a peasant, you might be able to join the church and be a monk or a nun, which we'll talk a little bit about the church later on in this presentation. This is the chart that I shared with you earlier about feudalism. You notice this will go over in detail the things that each person is doing, and then it's actually even the question we had. So where the question mark is where knights would go, and you can copy this chart in your notes because it's going to go over in detail and a nice visual what everybody's doing, and that's why I like this one. Right. The Catholic Church was very powerful during this time. People were required to tithe, which is give 10% to the church. So they're required to do this. They have to do it. This isn't optional like it is today. The church is tax-free, so they're getting 10% of everybody's money, which is a pretty good portion, and then they're not being taxed on it. So they become really wealthy, really powerful, and really they're the strongest institution in Europe, stronger than the governments. And this is the one place where women can actually receive an education. If you are a nun and you join the church at this time, you are going to get the opportunity to learn to read and write so that you can do a scribe and do those things. You're still obviously giving up the opportunity to be married or anything like that because you're joining the church. But this is one area where if you want to get an education and you are a female, you are allowed to do that. Whereas anywhere else in society, you're probably not going to. And even for males, if you're born a peasant, you're probably not going to have that opportunity unless you join the church. So there are some good reasons, especially if you're a peasant, to go ahead and join the church. Crusades, these were the holy wars between Christians and Muslims. The big thing with the Crusades is that Jerusalem, that holy city, the church is like, we want to go get it. And they rally support for people to go do it. They win one or two of the Crusades. They actually take Jerusalem. But at the end of a series of 9 Crusades, it ends just like it begins, just like it began with Muslim control of Jerusalem. And you just had 1.7 million people die in the process, and really nothing changed. Crusade literally means holy war, The Islamic term for that is jihad. So that's their version for the same thing. But really, this turns into a whole lot of violence and fighting between two sides for nothing. And some of the hatred of each other still exists today. So not a lot of good came out of the Holy War. Even one of the crusades was a children crusades in which mostly teenagers went and fought in the crusades, and yeah, they got slaughtered in that one. So this was not a great thing. Agricultural improvements. Um, we talked a little bit about this as well. Some of the big things are the heavy plow, which are going to allow you to dig deeper and farm the land better. You now get the three-field system, which is modeled to the right. And you notice that this is where you have crop rotations. You would rotate each field year to year. And that fallow resting land, you may allow some animals to graze, but you're not going to be plowing it on that year, and you're not going to be growing crops on it. So the land now has an opportunity to rest, and overall your production is going to be better in the long run for this. All right. The guild system is also going to be something that we see come into play. This allows people to work and earn a skill, whether that is carpentry, masonry, being a blacksmith, being a shoemaker, whatever it may be. But you can now go and earn a skill. You have to go through that 3-step process to become a member, which I'm going to review again on the next slide. They advocate for each other. This is not a workers' union because you're not all working for the same company, but you're working together to benefit each other with your rules and regulations. The North Carolina Bar Association for lawyers is a similar thing today. All the lawyers in the state don't work together, but they say, hey, if you want to be a lawyer, you have to meet these requirements to be someone who we call a lawyer and a member of this bar association. And so that's what's very similar to that today. Okay, so it's kind of like the guilds. They don't all work together, right? All the masters have their own shops, but they are an association of workers that are going to try to advocate for their profession. There are 3 levels, and remember, this is from low to high. So when you join, you start out as an apprentice, then you can become a journeyman, and finally a master. I do need you to copy this chart from your book, at least the part about what the apprentice, journeyman, and master is doing. Remember, your parents are literally paying for your training. If you're an apprentice, you're going to go and live with a master, become a part of the family, and you're going to learn from them for a period of time. Eventually, you get to become a journeyman where you're actually getting paid instead of paying to be there, and you can work, and you're going to produce something great, produce a masterpiece, and that's would allow you to eventually become a master who owns your own shop, and you can even work with other masters, and you can talk about, hey, this is things when you go to that guild association meeting, this is things that we need to do in order to improve our organization and our business. So this is the thing. And if you're a peasant, now you have this opportunity to go and do something. And if you notice at the top, the guild services in the top right talks about some of the other benefits that they have by joining together in this association. And if you look at it, hey, do I want to be a manual laborer peasant? Or do I want to join a guild? I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm ready to sign up for the guild as soon as possible. One of the other big things that we did not really talk about that happens during the Middle Ages is the Black Plague. It is spread through rats, and it's caused over 50 million deaths worldwide, around 25 million in Europe, which was half of the population at the time. One of the big things to keep in mind with the Black Plague is that even animals were affected. Okay. There was one of the things I read talked about there was a wool shortage because they had sheep that were dying from the plague. Not to mention that you're losing people and people are sick. You're not really able to take care of the livestock that you do have. So this is going to have very, very disastrous effects on the population. I do have a video on this. I'm not going to click on it during this. I want you to go into the slides and click on the link and watch it. It's a history.com article on the Middle Ages. It's a very good article. If you want to read the whole thing, you can, but the part that you are required to do is click on it and go on and watch that video. It's about a 2.5 minute video. with a man that's talking about the Black Death and the sort of medical side of that. And it's a really interesting video, the way he talks about it. And I really want you to check that out. And you'll also get to see, I believe, if you get the same ad I did, you'll see a Hardee's commercial right before it. So that's fun. The Black Death versus COVID-19. So today, obviously, we are doing this online stuff because we're facing our own challenge. But really, COVID-19, when you compare it to something like the Black Plague, at least to this point, this is nothing. So as of, I'm making this presentation on April 2nd, so y'all probably going to see it on Monday. This is Thursday. But there's under 1 million cases of COVID-19 right now, and a little bit under 50,000 deaths, and there are 7.8 billion people alive today. If we go back to the last slide and talk about it, right? You had 50 million deaths. Okay, we're not up to 1 million cases when I'm making this. And you had half the population wiped out. So 25 million in Europe, then wiping out half the population. If we had that 50 million deaths, if we say, all right, let's go worldwide today, that would be close to 4 billion deaths. Okay, probably about 3.9 would be half the population today. This COVID-19, thankfully, it is really nothing when compared to the Black Death in world history. This is a very mild thing in comparison, not to say that it's not serious, but we should all be thankful that we're not dealing with something like the Black Death, and that even if the Black Death tried to come back, modern antibiotics can treat it. So meanwhile, in the Middle East, you're having a much better society than you did in Europe during the Middle Ages. You're going to have scholars writing books and translating the existing texts from Greece and Rome and all these other fabulous things back into Arabic. They are inventing things such as soap and medical instruments. There's also improvements made in math, which is really key during that time. And even just the total span that's under the Islamic Caliphate is more than 3 times larger than what's kind of under the rule of the Catholic Church. So this is a really large, really expansive empire, so to speak. Even though it's religiously controlled, they take over a lot of it by military conquest. But it's a much better life than really what you're going to have in most of Europe. So it's just, but it doesn't get talked about as much in history. But really, during the Middle Ages, things are a lot better if you're living in the Middle East than in Europe. I'm going to circle back around to feudalism. There are 3 big factors that we saw that decline in feudalism. The Black Death, as we talked about, part of the reason for the Black Death with this is you're losing population, and you need a lot of peasants to work the land. And if there's plenty of peasants to go around and somebody doesn't want to cooperate, well, fine, we won't feed you, or we'll kill you, or we'll do whatever if you don't want to work the land. When you cut the number of peasants in half, now all of a sudden you have to have those people available to work the land, because there's nobody else to do it if somebody's like, yeah, you're not treating us better, we want better working conditions. So that's going to play a role. Agricultural improvements will also play a role, right? If you can have less people to produce the same amount of food, that's really important. Now you can have some peasants go do other things. And then the last part is the guilds. Now you have a choice. You have a chance to go and get educated by learning a particular skill and go and have a good career and do something with your life other than being a peasant. That's why we got the smiley face with the sunshine guy, because if you're a peasant, the decline in feudalism is a good thing for you. So that pretty much concludes the lesson. There's a couple of things I want you to remember to do. Make sure you're doing your Cornell notes. Do not forget to write the summary at the bottom of your Cornell notes. They may be typed, so you may type them, or you may handwrite them and take a picture and upload them. Whichever you prefer is fine with me. Make sure you do submit those, though, on the assignment. Contact me with any questions that you have. I'm going to do a separate video where I overview the choice board for the week. So I'm going to post that one separately. So there will be two videos this week. with that. But like I said, if y'all got any questions at all, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. A lot of y'all did some really good work in week 1, and I hope to see y'all continue that with week 2. And then the last thing, I just wanted to share a couple memes with y'all about what we're going through. The first one is "Where's Waldo?" with social distancing. And then, yeah, Oprah, you're all getting homeschooled now, or online school, or whatever you want to call it, but not in school. Yay. I miss y'all guys. I hope that y'all are enjoying the assignments, or at least they're occupying your time. I know a lot of y'all mentioned last week that y'all were bored. So hopefully you're at the very least not bored anymore. And I hope you're staying safe and doing well. And I hope that y'all have a great week.